Greetings, I'm Demonac, and it's arena time. So we're going to do another one of my more basic level tutorial sort of arena runs, and I'm going to take the most basic arena class of all, the Mage.
You asked for it.
I don't know if her cards make for the ideal mix for the arena, but her ability to just pay 2 mana and do 1 damage to something gives you so much extra control over what lives and what dies. It just lets you be so much more efficient with your cards, saving cards, killing things without using cards. And that's really where a lot of the victory is. I don't like the Doomsayer. He's so weird. He changes the way you play, right? Because when you play the Doomsayer, if your opponent can just do 7 damage to him, then you kind of wasted your turn. Because you don't want to play the Doomsayer and play like other stuff, right? If they have less than 7 damage worth of stuff, is it worth not playing army on your turn, just playing the Doomsayer to try and get rid of them? And even then, it can backfire because they might have some other way to get rid of him, or silence him, or just do another extra couple points of damage. And he does all kinds of things. I find, for myself, he makes me play badly. But I'm sure you can do strong things with him. If you can put him out and you have something else with Taunt, that greatly increases his chances of going off. And for 2 mana, you can destroy all minions. That's a very strong effect if there's some way that you can make it actually work. The Blood Knight is like a hoser for all the bubble cards. And there are a lot of Paladin ones. There are some neutral ones too, though. Just minions that come into play with a Divine Shield. The Divine Shield, of course, prevents all damage from 1 attack. Whether it's 1 damage or 10 damage, stops 1 source of damage. The Mage, of course, has a great counter to that already, which is to just do 1 damage to the thing with her ability. So, he's okay. He's still a 3/3 for 3. He's not, like, bad, even if you don't get to use his ability. And some of the things with Divine Shield are some of the more popular, like, guys. But I'm going to take the Ice Block. I don't know if it's the best for the arena, but it is one of the best secrets, period. Which is just, you play this, there is nothing your opponent can do to reveal this secret ahead of time. I mean, okay, there's a hunter card called Flare that blows up all enemy secrets, but normally when you play a secret, your opponent's trying to figure out what secret you have, and either, if they think they know what it is, try and not set it off, potentially, or they might be trying different things to set it off in a way that doesn't hurt them too much. Ice Block messes with their head because they can't set it off early. It's only set off when you would die. And at that point, it stops all damage for the rest of that entire turn. You can't take any damage, including the thing that would have killed you. So it really can buy you a lot of time, because it guarantees you're going to get 1 more turn, 1 more card you're going to draw, 1 more chance to use all your mana to win the game. And yeah, it's pretty obnoxious, but it also works really well with, if you get any things that benefit from secrets. Like there's a 3/3 guy, he's ethereal something or other, and he gets +2/+2 at the end of your every turn if you have a secret in play. He's great with this, because they can't get rid of this. They have to get rid of him. I'm going to take it anyway. That extra turn at the end is very strong. Ice Lance, 1 mana for 4 damage would be great, but it's hard to set up where you're freezing the character. You know, most of the things that freeze also do damage, right? So it's got to be something so big that you're spending a card or an attack from a Frost Elemental or whatever to freeze the thing, and then you wanted to spend 1 mana and use your Ice Lance to do another 4 damage. It's pretty good if you have like a Frost Elemental hit your opponent, and then you can zap your opponent for 4 for 1 mana, but I don't know, I just don't like it that much. Now, the fact that it just freezes the character on its own is actually a pretty good effect. If there's a big minion out there, for 1 mana you can stop that one thing from attacking next turn. And that's all you need a lot of times to sway the battle in your favor. But I'm going to take the Mana Worm, because it gives me, it's one of these Mage cards that gives you a chance to have crazy first turn plays. I don't know if I'll get stuff to go with it, but it's possible. Ironbeak Owl is very flexible. Silencing is just a very strong ability. You silence the Mana Worm, it's just a 1/3. It loses all the boosts it may have had up to that point and can't get any boosts in the future, you know. It doesn't help you against things with battle cries. It doesn't help against stealth because I can't target the guy with stealth. But it stops a lot of things. I'm thinking that'd be good. Now, the Panther is also pretty good because it can kill something and it's unlikely to die first. And even a Darkscale Healer, I've mentioned before that the Yeti is an amazing card. It just, for whatever reason, its stats work out really well to be a 4/5 for 4 mana. Well, think that this is just 1 more mana than the Yeti, and for that 1 mana, it heals 2 health to you and to all your minions when it comes into play. That's not bad. It's still not quite a Yeti, but you know what? I'm going to hope that as a mage I can kill enough enemy minions that I don't need the silence that badly. I'm going to take this, because it's a fairly strong mid-game sort of minion. You know, it keeps trying to give me the Tiger, and the Tiger is fine. He's not my favorite guy, but he's quite good, because he's going to live long enough to do his 5 damage, almost always. If they don't have Taunt, then this is going to do 5 damage to them on your next turn, and there's very little they can do about it. And after that, he's still alive to do more damage so they have to kill him afterwards. It's pretty serious, but Direwolf Alpha is very strong, like early game and mid game sort of card. I mean, 2/2 for 2 is fine, and then that +1 that it gives to adjacent minions happens right away. So if you play this next to something and that can attack already, then you're getting that extra damage this turn, and that can make a big difference. Plus, you got to remember, it's just adjacent things, right? So if I have something next to it, if I attack with the Stranglethorn Tiger, hit something, and the Tiger dies, the next thing on that side will shift over and now be adjacent. So it will now get the bonus. So you can get that bonus multiple times if your minions are dying from their attacks. But we're going to take Polymorph because it gets rid of big bad things. It's kind of a 2-step kill. Reducing them to a 1/1 is not the same as killing them, but you've totally silenced them and neutered their stats, so it's very good. Spellbreaker, bigger version of the Owl, is just kind of preference. I mean, he costs more. You get more for his cost. But I like the Owl better usually because it's so cheap. Like, it's easy to cast the Owl and then go on and do other things. We have the Lord of the Arena, who is pretty good in the arena. I mean, he's probably okay. I don't think you see him too much in constructed decks, because he's a 6/5, and it's that thing, you wish he had higher defense instead of offense. If the stats are close together, you'd rather have the 5/6, because it just reduces the number of things that can easily kill him. But as taunt, it goes extra, because as the taunt minion, you just need it to have enough attack that it's going to kill most things that it blocks, or at least do a lot of damage to them, which 5 would be plenty, but having more hit points means it can block more things, which is really what you want. He's still okay, and he's quite good in the arena, but because I'm a mage, I'm really going to take the Tauren Warrior. He's a 2/3 taunt for 3. It's like, okay, and you want some taunts because it does limit your opponent's choices. That's what it's all about. It's not really about, like, it protects you, it does. Protecting you is good, but you got to think it's something that limits your opponent's choices. And anytime you can limit them, you're controlling them in some way. You're preventing them from doing what they want. That's pretty good. Now, for 3 mana, you can get the bears, right? They're like Grizzly Bear or something. It's a 3/3 taunt for 3. That would be better, right? But this Enrage, when you're a mage, when you can trigger it so easily that if your opponent doesn't kill the Tauren Warrior, on your next turn, you can just shoot it, hit them for 5. So it's pretty sweet that way. Bluegill Warrior is an excellent card. Okay, it's a totally common card. Everyone has their Bluegill Warriors unlocked, but you spend 2 mana, you can do 2 damage to the opponent, or 2 damage to any minion they have if they don't have taunt. It's just really good to have that option. The deckhand is an interesting comparison because he's the exact same thing for 1 less mana, but he only gets charge if he only gets charge if you have a weapon, which as a mage I'm never going to have. But if you're a rogue, their ability gives them a weapon for 2 mana. It's a 2-use weapon. It's weak, but that's a really reliable way to get a weapon, and that works out pretty darn well for him. I'm going to ignore them both and take Cone of Cold because I love this card. This freezes 1 minion and deals 1 damage to it, and then also freezes the adjacent minions, does 1 damage to each of them. You can usually freeze your opponent's whole army. How often do people have more than 3 things out? And even if they did, you'd be choosing mostly which ones you wanted to freeze. So it freezes them, and it's wearing them down in the process. It gives you more time to kill them with your ability, or with your minions, or anything else. It's just a pretty great card. Do I want another Cone of Cold, or do I want a big fat minion? Cone of Cold. I may be a little bit silly. I may like Cone of Cold too much, but I like Cone of Cold. So we got the Booty Bay Bodyguard. He's another one where if he was a 4/5, he'd be so much better. But your opponent does have to get rid of him because getting hit for 5 is bad. Direwolf Alpha is pretty good. Again, I think I'm going to take the Youthful Brewmaster because he can be very flexible later on. If you just play him second turn, like, he has this drawback, if you can call it a drawback, where when you play him, you have to return one of your minions to your hand. It doesn't happen if he's alone, so you can just play him second turn and you get a 3/2. But later in the game, using him to pick up my Darkscale Healer, then recast her, and she'd have all her health back, because I'm casting her from my hand, and I get to heal everyone for 2 again. That's not even the best use. I'm sure I might get some better battle cries as I go on, so I'm going to take him. Loot Hoarder is very good, right? Cards are power. If he's drawing, if he's giving me another whole card, he's like twice as good as a 2/1 for 2 that doesn't give me another card. He's maybe more than twice as good because that other card could be even better. Like a 2/1 for 2 is not fabulous, but when you're drawing a card, it's awesome. Now, because his is a death rattle, it doesn't happen when he comes into play, it happens when he dies. Your opponent has some chance to do something about it, but it's still pretty limited. Usually he's just going to draw you a card, and he still does 2 damage a turn. This guy comes in, he's kind of like a very expensive counterpart to that Murloc, right? Because you pay 4 mana, he comes in and does 2 damage to whatever you want. The difference is the Murloc will never survive if you hit a minion. This guy has a pretty good chance of surviving. He will usually come in, kill something smaller than himself, and end up as a 2/2 or a 2/3, which would not be good for 4 mana, except he's already killed something. Pretty decent. But of course, Enrage is so good as a mage. I'm going to take the Raging Worgen. This guy just goes nuts. He virtually never lives long enough to use his ability, certainly not to attack a second time using Wind Fury, but he gets that Wind Fury right away. If your opponent has a Loot Hoarder, and you have a Raging Worgen ready to attack, you hit the Loot Hoarder, Worgen takes 2 damage, kills the Loot Hoarder, but now he's enraged, so he has Wind Fury, which lets him attack twice per turn. So he can immediately attack again, and it's crazy. Anyway, we're going to do that because I can use my Mage ability to cheat and trigger him more easily. The Alchemist is very interesting and flexible. I mean, you can't necessarily count on a situation coming up where he's useful. Sometimes his battlecry will do not much for you at all, and he's just a 2/2 for 2, but that's not so bad. It's still something you can play early in the game. Late in the game, it can have crazy effects that make it easier to kill things. Like, if my opponent was a priest who had an Imp Master and they're healing it, at the end of every turn, she deals 1 damage to herself and summons an extra 1/1. Priests sometimes like this as a combo because they can keep healing her. So she's just a 1/5 that makes a 1/1 every turn forever as long as they keep healing her, right? I can play the Crazed Alchemist, turn her into a 5/1, and then just hit her for 1 with like anything that does 1 damage. Like, I don't know, my Mage ability. Boom, dead. That's pretty cool. And you can do some other weird things. If it was my Imp Master, I could play the Crazed Alchemist, turn into a 5/1, and hit my opponent for 4 more damage than they were expecting. Gotten kills that way. We've seen it. The Injured Blade Master is good if you can heal him, because he's like, what? He does 4 damage to himself. He's a 4/3 for 3, which is perfectly decent stats. But his maximum health is still 7, which means if you have anything that can heal him, especially if you're just a priest, because that's their ability, but anything that can heal him can turn him into a very good creature for less mana than you normally pay. I'm going to take the Crazed Alchemist because he seems fun. Acolyte of... Oh, this is tough. I don't like the Elven Archer so much. I still find it a little bit on the weak side. It is nice, like, for 1 mana, you can do 1 damage to something and help finish something off. I just find she's not usually worth the card. Like, the minion that's left over after that 1 damage is nothing to cry home about, right? Acolyte of Pain is amazing for a mage because, first off, this guy, he's a 1/3 for 3, not good stats, but he will almost always draw you a card because there aren't many things that kill without dealing damage, right? If he gets hit by a 4/4, he's going to die, not do much back, but he will draw you a card to replace himself. So it wasn't that bad. It was just like a waste of 3 mana. However, if it takes 2 sources of damage to kill him, if he takes 2 damage from one thing and 1 from another, I drew 2 cards for him, and they spent all that effort killing him. As a mage, if I have 5 mana, I can play him, and then I can shoot him myself right away. So immediately draw a card, and then he's still out there. They still have to do the 2 damage at once, or I could shoot him again next turn and end up getting so many cards out of him. Now, that's a tough choice between him and Mirror Image. Drawing a lot of cards could really win, especially in the arena where it's harder to get card drawing. Mirror Image is so good, though. 2/0/2 taunt minions. If I had one of those Direwolf alphas, I could drop it in between, and now they can attack, or at least do some damage back to the things they block. Mostly, they're just going to block 2 attacks, but it's a good way to block 2 attacks for 1 mana, and it combos with the Mana Worm, right? If I play Mana Worm first turn, second turn, I play the Mirror Image, now he's protected, and he gets +1 attack because Mirror Image is a spell. If I'm going second, I have the Coin, which remember counts as a spell, so I can play the Mana Worm. Then I play the Coin, he gets +1 attack. Then I use that 1 mana from the Coin to cast Mirror Image. Now I have a 3/3 and 2/0/2 taunts to protect it. My opponent has spent 1 mana so far. What are they even going to do? So that's a pretty tough choice. I like both of those things. I'm going to take the Acolyte of Pain now and hope I get more Mirror Images later, because the card drawing is good. So we could get another Polymorph. The Earthen Ring Farseer would have been good if I had the Blade Master, right? I could heal him. Now, would I actually take him for that? It's unlikely that I would actually get that combo together. So it's not worth thinking that is a very strong reason to pull him. Even if I had the Blade Master, if you're just talking 2 specific cards in your deck and hoping that you get them at the same time, don't count on it. Think about that when you're choosing cards. You're like, it would be nice, but you still got to choose the card on its own merits. In the arena, you don't try and build those crazy combos too much. I'm going to take Mirror Entity because first off, this having secrets messes with your opponent. This one is 3 mana. It's going to give me a minion. It's not triggered by a Paladin ability or the Shaman ability to make a token, to make a totem or a 1/1 reinforcement sky every turn. It's got to be a minion they play from their hand. So whatever I get from this is something that they felt was worth having a card in their deck to play. It was something they spent a card on. But later in a game, this messes with them because they have to decide. They're like, oh, I just got 7 mana. I want to cast this 7 mana amazing minion. But Mage has a secret, and I don't know, if it's a Mirror Entity, then I would be giving the Mage a copy of the same minion, and theirs will get to attack first. Because the person who played it can't attack right away because it's their turn, right? Unless it has charge. On the Mage's turn, they already controlled it, so now it loses that sleeping effect, and it can now attack. So that works out pretty crazy. And what happens is, just having any secrets can get you this benefit, right? That when they hit that 7 mana, they're going to not play that 7 mana creature. They're going to try and play a weaker minion from their hand and just mess around, just in case you have a Mirror Entity. But I like that sometimes I will have a Mirror Entity. Okay, Harpy can do a lot of damage, especially if you can buff her. I'm not going to have ways to buff her, and I don't like her that much. Arcane Missiles is okay, it goes well with the Mana Worm, but I'm not going to take it just for that combo. I find it a little bit weaker otherwise. I'm going to take the Flame Strike because 4 damage to all enemy minions, it's expensive, but it's likely to kill multiple cards for my 1. And that is usually a big win. So he's kind of tough, but meh. Unless you have stuff that triggers off beasts, like Hunters have a bunch of things that get bonuses for beasts, then he's more worthwhile. Otherwise, I don't like him that much. The Archmage has spell damage. He's kind of expensive, but he's very tough. He still has decent attack. And if I had damaging spells, he makes my Cone of Cold do 2 damage every time, which is pretty cool. But I think I'm going to take the Berserker. Note, he's exactly the same as the Snapjaw, but for 1 more mana, every time he takes damage, he gets +3 attack. Normal Enrage, when cards have Enrage, like this guy, if he gets healed back up to full health, he loses his Enrage again. He's like, oh, well, it doesn't hurt anymore, so I'm not angry anymore. This guy's always angry. He only gets angrier till he dies. And as a mage, I can shoot him every turn. So the first time I shoot him, he's a 5/6, which is pretty good for 5 mana, although it took more than 5 mana because I had to spend 2 to shoot him. If I shoot him again the turn after that, just before attacking, he'd have 8 attack. He's a pretty scary guy, and your opponent... usually you don't get that much benefit out of him, except your opponent has to play around that. They have to worry about, oh, what am I going to do about that guy? And they're usually going to lose some minions in the process. He's kind of like, in most cases, unless you have beast combos, he's kind of worse than that 1/1 elf archer, right, who shoots for 1. He shoots for 1, except he takes damage back if he hits a minion. That's no good. It's like, for 1 mana, what he does is okay. The problem is, for 1 card, I want more in my deck. Mad Bomber's very random, I don't know about that, but I like the Direwolf Alpha. I'm just hoping I can get some more mirror images. I find this guy kind of expensive. This might help protect me in the early game. I'm almost tempted to take that. I don't know how slow my deck is going to be. But I'm going to take the Farseer instead, because healing myself for 3 is good, 3/3 for 3 mana is good, and he can heal other minions as well. You get to choose. So there we go. Abusive Sergeant is very good, right? He's a 2/1 for 1, so that's about as good a stats as you're going to get for 1 mana. You would have to have some kind of drawback to have more than 3 points worth of stats. The only exception to that is if it's a class minion. Remember, class-based cards, they have 1 more point. If there was a point system, they have 1 more point to spend on stats. So Mana Worm and the Abusive Sergeant both have good abilities, but the Mana Worm has 4 stats total. He only has 3 because he's a neutral card. The class minions get a benefit there. But he's still, for a neutral card, he's as big as he's going to get anyway. And giving +2 until end of turn to a minion's attack means if I already have something in play, say the Crazed Alchemist in play, he's already done his thing, he's just a 2/2 now. I could for 1 mana play the Abusive Sergeant, so I'm getting a minion out of it anyway. But I give this guy +2/+0, and now he can kill something that has 4 toughness. He could kill a 4/4. He'd die in the process, but I mean, mostly the Abusive Sergeant is just letting me trade a bad creature for a good one at that point. But I'm going to take the Mirror Image because, again, it works with the Mana Worm, but it just protects your butt later in the game. Frostbolt is so good. 3 damage for 2 mana is actually pretty decent when you can start comparing it around to what the other classes do, but this does that, and it stops the minion from attacking. So if it was something big and it doesn't die, it still loses a turn of attacking you. It gives you more time to deal with it. That would be really good. It would be good to have more cheap spells for my Mana Worm, but I only have 1 Mana Worm. What are the chances I'm going to have the Mana Worm right at the start of the game when he's useful? A little iffy. So I'm going to take the Flame Strike, because that, again, it has a very good chance of getting multiple cards for my 1. I do need some more sort of mid-range creatures, though. I'd like to have a lot of 3 and 4 mana creatures, as long as they're good 3 and 4 mana creatures. So Struggle Panther's pretty offensive. I think I'm going to take the Stormwind Knight, because he'll come in and kill something right away. And usually survive. So here's a rare. Cold Light Oracle, you would be surprised. Like, this guy, okay, for normal purposes, just think of him as a bad card. You probably don't want him in the arena. Unless you really know what you're doing, you don't want to play this guy, because, yeah, you get a 2/2, and you draw 2 cards, but you're giving your opponent 2 cards for free. You just spent 3 mana, so they're actually going to have more mana to use with those free cards than you are. So, a friend of mine, Briarstone, actually has a deck where he tries to force your opponent to run out of cards, and because he has a bunch of things that can make your opponent draw cards, he can also... There's a maximum hand size. If you have 10 cards in your hand, and anything causes you to draw another card, that card will just be destroyed. Now, it's not just that you can't draw it. It's destroyed before you can even get it. You don't get to choose which card you get rid of. The new one is the one that's destroyed. So if your opponent has 10 cards and then you play this, that's pretty harsh. You're going to blow up 2 cards. They can't control which ones it is. Maybe they have a combo and they're losing it. Maybe it's their killing like finisher sort of card and they lose it. But under normal circumstances, your opponent's never going to have like 9 or 10 cards in their hand. And most of the time, you're just not going to want to play something like this. So probably just don't take him in the arena until you really know what you're doing, and then I still don't take him in the arena. So there you go. This guy is like a bigger version of that Tiger. I like the Tiger better. Tiger's 5/5 for 5. This guy's 7/5 for 7. Yeah, with the stealth, like having 2 more attack is pretty good, but he's not very survivable. I just find that 5/5 is more efficient for being basically the same thing. But we're going to take the Sunwalker because it's a decent size, but with taunt, like a 4/5 taunt for 6 would be okay. The Divine Shield is just awesome. There are 6 classes that don't have an ability that does 1 damage. Any of them, they're probably going to have to waste something more significant to get rid of the shield. And even a Druid or a Rogue, they have an ability that can do 1 damage, just like their hero ability. But they would take his 4 damage back in the process. So it's only against a Mage that Divine Shield is less useful. Ice Barrier, this is not my favorite secret, because if it's just like pay 3 mana and gain 8 hit points, that's kind of a bad deal. If your card's not doing anything else, like 3 mana for 8 hit points, that's pretty good. That's a good ratio of mana to hit points. But if that's all your card is doing, it's not improving your situation that much. Ice Barrier is a little different because it's a secret, because it's got that messing with their head aspect, right? If I play Ice Barrier, and then it's their 7 mana turn, just to go back to the previous example so you can see what I'm talking about. They look at that, they just see that I have a secret, and they're like, oh crap, is it a mirror entity? Now they don't want to play their strong 7 mana minion, they want to play something weaker first, and then they do, and then my secret doesn't go off, and they're like, yay, it's not a mirror entity, but I spent some of my mana, I can't cast that big guy now. And they still have to worry, is it a counter spell? Is it a spellbounder? There's so much obnoxious stuff a mage can do. There's another secret called Vaporize, which is just like, if a minion attacks the mage directly, destroy that minion before it hits. Just the fact that it's a secret makes it a lot better than it seems. Armor is also better than hit health for most purposes, because I could be at full health, and this goes off, and I still gain 8 armor. Whereas, if I was at full health, and I healed for 8, it would do nothing. With this, you could go up to 38 hit points. So that's kind of cool. You get another Polymorph. Novice Engineer, it's a crappy minion for 2 mana, but 2 mana is not a bad price to just draw a card and get nothing else. That sounds kind of dumb. It's slowing down your deck in a sense, but it helps you get to the cards that you want faster. It helps you go through your deck faster. And you do get a 1/1 in the process. It's not nothing. It's just almost nothing. But I think I would rather take the Polymorph. I don't have any other stuff that interacts with secrets. If I had some things that gave me benefits for having more secrets, I would be tempted to do that. But I'd rather have the Polymorph just get rid of a big creature rather than the big creature hits me and this stops the damage for 1 turn, but they still have a big creature. That's more how I tend to think of Ice Barrier. I don't like you. This guy, he can attack twice a turn, right? But in order to pay for that very strong ability, his stats are just not very good for the cost. And you know what? If you want to attack minions twice a turn and survive, you need a lot of hit points, which he doesn't have. If you want to attack the other player twice a turn and do tons of damage, well, he only has 2 attack. He still only does 4 damage to them unless you can buff him somehow. He's just not very good. If you have a way to give another minion Wind Fury that didn't pay for it out of its casting cost. So if I play the Tauren Warrior and then next turn I shoot him, trigger his Enrage, and then I played a spell that just gave him Wind Fury, now I'm doubling his large attack, and that's awesome, because it's like a geometric bonus, right? Anytime you're doubling something, that's going to be a very strong effect, because it's not a fixed number. Like, if you double something big, you get even more out of it. Whereas if you give +3 attack to something, it doesn't matter whether you gave +3 attack to something small or something big, you're getting the same amount. Ooh, I'm taking too long to go through this. But anyway, I don't like either of these guys, because you're paying for that Wind Fury in your casting cost. Shamans are the only ones that it's kind of a shaman ability, so they have a couple cards that can grant Wind Fury. Those cards are awesome. Minions that have Wind Fury built in, usually not so awesome. So, believe it or not, I'm going to take the River Crocodile because it has no abilities, but 2/3 for 2 is a good set of stats. It five stats for 2 mana is what you tend to get. Normally you get an ability. His ability is just being a beast, which is useful for hunters, no use for me. But just look at how he works out against other minions. Anything they play for 1 mana, it could be a 1/3 if it's a class spell, but it's probably going to be for 1 mana, it's probably going to be a 2/1 or a 1/1. River Crocodile kills it, no problem. What do they get for 2 mana? Well, they could get a 2 mana 2/2 with a good ability. The Crocodile kills that and survives. They could get another 3/2. If the Crocodile runs into that, they both get hurt and don't die, which is kind of silly. But then hopefully I can finish it off because I'm a mage. And if it runs into a 3/2, like a creature that's more offensive oriented, they would both die. Thing is, if you're playing with a 3/2 creature, it loses to those 1 mana 2/1s, whereas this guy doesn't. So I like 2/3 as a set of stats for 2 mana. It's actually better than it sounds. But I'll try and go through the rest a little faster. This guy is good. He's a 2/1 for 1. He almost always lives to attack, unless your opponent has something that damages a random target. Because if it's random, it doesn't care about stealth. But yeah, he's pretty good that way, but I have to take the Fireball because I'm a friggin' mage. And Fireball is just an amazing card. It's a very good card for killing minions, and it's flexible because you can also use it to finish your opponent. People spend a lot of mana to get something that'll do 4 mana, 4 damage right away. This does 6 damage right away for only 4 mana. It's super good. Arcane Explosion would be nice to have in the arena. I don't have any spell power stuff. I haven't actually chosen the guys with spell power, even when they came up. With spell power, it's doing more than 1 damage to everything. It starts being awesome. I don't have that. Blowing up weapons is very good, even though you really only see it from a few of the classes. Warriors have tons of weapons. Hunters have a couple weapons, but they're rare. You don't see them as often, especially in the arena. The Shaman has 1 common weapon and 1 rare weapon, basically. Or, sorry, 1 common and 1 epic. So they don't all that often have the weapons in the arena. And Paladins have a common weapon, and it's super good. It's worth blowing up. So it's good against them, but the rest of the classes don't have a lot of weapons. Arcane Intellect, though, is going to draw me 2 cards. And some of my early stuff, I don't like getting this early in the game, because early in the game I want to use that 3 mana to do something that's going to help me early in the game. But later on, when you have a lot of mana, when you might be able to cast multiple spells per turn, when you're running out of cards in your hand, this is what you want to draw. If you have 10 mana, there are very few cards you would rather see when you pick up your 1 card than Arcane Intellect, because you just picked up 2 cards, even though you only have 7 mana this turn to spend them. Okay, out of these guys, this doesn't do enough for the card. It would only be worth it if you had stuff that comboed off playing a lot of cards in 1 turn. I've already got one of these guys, and he's fine, but Scarlet Crusader is pretty awesome against anyone who's not a mage. She only has 1 hit point, but that Divine Shield means she has, infinite hit points for 1 source of damage, and then she only has 1 hit point. And that's pretty darn good. She often trades well. These are tough choices. These are all very good. The Water Elemental is kind of like a super Yeti, right? Because he's similar to a Yeti. He's even more defensive, which isn't necessarily better when he's already got a good stat distribution. But this guy has an extra point of stats because he's a class card, and that ability. Well, okay, sorry. He has the same number of stats as the Yeti, but the Yeti has no abilities, and he has a good ability. If you hit one of those classes that has weapons, if you hit them in the face, that character, their player can't use their weapon for 1 turn, which is pretty nice. But it also, anything it hits it gets frozen and can't attack it next turn. So anything big, if this runs into a big minion, whether it can kill this guy or not, that minion won't be able to attack next turn. Mirror Image still if I take Mirror Image, I have a better chance to get a crazy start with the Mana Worm. Even though I only have 1 Mana Worm, that's still pretty obnoxious. And later in the game, I usually don't want to draw a 1 mana card later in the game, but Mirror Image will still stop 2 actions most of the time. I better take the Water Elemental just for more fighting power in the middle of the game, though, as tempting as the Mirror Image was. Do I want another water elemental or another mirror entity? It does mess with your opponent to have this thing. You can only have one of them out at a time. Mirror entity tends to get triggered almost right away because people play a minion almost every turn, almost every game. But I think I'm going to go with the water elemental so I have just more stuff to fight with. I feel like I have a lot of non-minion things in this deck, and I want more to fight with. The bluegill can come in and just do 2 damage. The abusive sergeant can boost something. That's pretty good. Razorfen Hunter, I don't like so much. I mean, counting the boar that it comes with, it's giving you 3/4 worth of stats for 3, which is pretty good. I'd rather have an actual 3/4 in this case because it's tougher. The other creature, all the other minions that give you like an extra minion when they come into play, just seem to work out better than this one in terms of their role. Because a 2/3 minion isn't very good, and a 1/1 minion is horrible. I'd rather pay 1 more mana and get the gnome where she's a 2/4, which is suddenly a fair amount harder to kill than 3 hit points, and she comes with a 2/1, which is actually doing a decent amount of damage instead of 1 damage like this. I don't know. It's a tough choice between these two. I guess I'll take the Bluegill Warrior, because this guy is only really good if you have another minion that's ready to attack. This guy is going to do his 2 damage anyway, although he'll die in the process, whereas this guy can have somebody else die, which is actually pretty beneficial. You'll notice it's give any minion +2 attack. If you don't have any other minions, you have to give it to an opponent's minion. But it's only until end of turn, so at the end of your turn they lose it. So there's no harm there. But if you had, like, priests have a lot of cards that only work on minions with 3 or less attack, or only work on minions with 5 or more attack. This would let me boost a 4 attack minion, because guess what, none of those cards work on stuff with 4 attack, like Yetis. Well, I could give +2 attack to a Yeti and then kill it with my priest spell that kills anything that has 5 attack or more. So they're useful for that. That's not helping me, so I'm going to take the Bluegill. Then we're going to... Oh, Corehound is so expensive and fragile. I don't like him. Ice Lance, I don't think I even ended up with anything that freezes stuff. So this is just like stop one creature from attacking for 1 turn. Not that great. I guess I'll take the Raid Leader. I don't like him as much as the Direwolf Alphas. Even though he works on all your minions, how often do you have more than 2 minions out? He costs 1 more mana, he's not really worth it. But that's okay. We're going to take him in this case because given the choices, I didn't like the other choices. Angry Chicken is pretty horrible. I mean, Enrage only triggers if the minion is damaged but still alive. So you have to boost its hit points somehow and then have it take damage. The Cobra is good because it can kill anything. It usually dies in the process if you're killing something big, but 2/3 for 3 isn't horrible stats, and that ability is very strong. Pint-Sized Summoner is pretty interesting. Okay, she's a 2/2 for 2. She's usually going to die without doing anything for you, but if your opponent doesn't kill her, she's kind of giving you +1 mana every turn until she dies, which is pretty good. It only works on the first minion you play each turn. So, if you play her, then you've played at least 1 minion, including her. So she doesn't work the turn she comes into play. But if you go second turn, Pint-Sized Summoner, third turn, you have 3 mana, but your minions are 1 cheaper, so I could actually just cast a Water Elemental on the third turn if she'd survived, which is pretty awesome. The Cobra can kill anything. I have 2 polymorphs. I've got a Fireball. I've got the Cone of Cold. I think I'm going to just take the Pint-Sized Summoner because there's a small chance it'll accelerate my deck to hyperspeed. Now, it took a long time and a whole lot of breath over-explaining all those cards, but I'm still hoping this is helping for people that don't have as much experience in the arena or in Hearthstone in general. So let's see what kind of opponent I run into, and I feel like my deck's okay. Nothing about it is really jumping out to me as awesome. Although, I have 2 Cone of Colds and 2 Flame Strikes. That's a lot for an arena deck. That's a lot of area freezing and a lot of area killing. It's also a combo, right? If on your 6 mana turn or later, you Cone of Cold their stuff, it's not dead, probably, because it only did 1 damage, but they can't attack, and they might put out more stuff so that the next turn you can Flame Strike it. Okay, I'm going to get rid of her because she's the most expensive thing. 3s and 4s are par for the course here. But it'd be nice to draw something cheaper. And I didn't. Okay. course. I lost the coin flip, so I'm going second, but at least when you lose the coin flip, you get to keep the coin. Which, if I drew my mana worm, might be nice, but even then I can't do too much. Okay, Argent Squire is just... It's a very weak creature, but it's a little hard to kill. We're going to save this and then play one of my 3-cost minions next turn. One trick for using a coin, I mean, it's all situational, okay? You have to figure out what makes the most sense at the time. If your opponent does something crazy and super aggressive on the first turn, you might need to just desperately coin out whatever you can to fight it. But when you look at your hand and decide, do I want to use the coin, you want to look at at what mana level do you have multiple things. So if I had a 2-cost minion in my hand, I might have still chosen not to coin it out, because I have 2 3-cost minions, so I can coin one out on my 2-mana turn, and then next turn I'll have 3 mana, I can cast the other one properly. Pretty good. So, speaking of which, I am going to coin out the Tauren Warrior. He's got 3 mana worth of minions, so we know it's going to die. But I'm hoping he'll take out some of them so that this guy can survive, because he's crazy dangerous if he lives long enough to enrage. Now, I have 2 water elementals, so it would have been tempting to save my coin 1 turn longer, and if I had a 2-mana creature, I probably would have. Because then on 3rd turn I could play a water elemental, and 4th turn I could play another water elemental. That would be pretty rough. Okay, so he used Claw to increase his attack value, which he can use in addition to his Druid power, as we saw in my Druid run. I think I did that. I don't know, I talked about it anyway. So, 3 damage. That was pretty annoying. Because now I still have to deal with these guys, and he's too fragile. But I'm going to have to play him anyway. You can't worry too much. Yes, if he could somehow survive long enough to attack, he'd do amazing things. But he won't. And I need to sort of hold down the fort a while until I start dropping water elementals, because I can't just let him keep beating on me every turn. He can buff them more. See, that's why people play her. I don't feel like I like her that much, because you're just getting a 1-1. And yeah, she's protected by a bubble, but does that make her a 1-2? Well, if you buff her, she can start doing good things, because you have that bubble protecting whatever resources you use to buff her. Although in that case it was just a temporary one. If she was just a 1-1 who was going to die, that would have also been fine. So I could play a water elemental now, and I would sort of like to, but a Cone of Cold would stop this guy from attacking next turn and kill both of them. I would rather Cone of Cold when I had minions of my own in play so they could do stuff, but even then I'd be forced to attack this if I played him first and then next turn Cone of Cold. I think I'm going to just do it now. It's a little bit of a waste to kill such weak things, but it's going to help me get back my board control. So next turn I might just, if my opponent did nothing, which is unlikely, I would shoot him for 2 mana and then play the Arcane Intellect, because he'd have nothing on the board to threaten me. Might as well get those cards. But of course he is doing things, what a surprise. Oh, this guy needs to die. How am I going to do that? He's so dangerous. Can't Flame Strike for a while. Man, is he dangerous. If the Druid can find some way to do 1 damage to him, he can hit me for 8, and I'll be down way below half health. So I could shoot this guy, which would be a pretty good use of 2 mana, but I only have 3 mana left, and I won't be able to play a minion to help defend me. I think I'm going to have to play the Water Elemental and just hope for the best. So there's a Druid spell called Wrath that deals 1 damage, and he draws a card. Doing that on him would be devastating right now. Wrath is actually super good because it's 2 mana, right? 1 damage and draw a card, or just 3 damage without drawing a card. The fact that it gives you the choice makes it amazing. Drawing a card is amazing anyway. If that 1 damage helps you and you draw a card, fantastic. If you just need to do 3 damage to something, it's still a pretty cheap way. Swipe. Swipe is still, like, the best minion killing card in the game, as far as I'm concerned. Now you can trade that. He can't attack his own Worgen, though, so at least it's only hitting me for 3 more damage, but the situation's going downhill. I have a lot of cards, but I'm below half health already, which is bad. It's so bad that I'm going to have to polymorph or fireball this guy, because just out of fear. I think that's what I'm going to do, because this doesn't have taunt. He can just attack right over top of it, so I'm actually going to polymorph this. Sad though that may be. And here's Youthful Brewmaster. And hope he can't do too horrendous amount of damage to me. If he plays any minion, there's a 50-50 chance this guy will do 1 damage to this, and then he could kill it with the sheep. Which would be pretty annoying. But if it does 1 damage to me, and then he hits me for 1 with the sheep, I don't have a lot of hit points.
Ready, sir.
See, that's bad, because it's giving him 2 minions to trigger off this guy. But at least I can kill them all with Flame Strike next turn. I'm getting beat down, though, and since he keeps using his Kung Fu there, his Shapeshift, to hit me, he's not losing the armor that's building up. So he's at 34 hit points, and I'm at 9. Now, I could do what I was talking about. I could freeze all them, and then draw 2 cards, just stalling the game, but he would still get to do free damage to me for any minion that he plays. I really wish I could do this and that. But if I freeze them, then maybe on his next turn he'll cast more minions. I can Flame Strike and kill all of them. I still won't have any offense to play if I do that, though. I'm probably better off just Flame Striking now. Not taking the extra damage from this, not giving him a chance to just... If I freeze this guy, he could play something that silences, and that's freezing as a spell effect, so getting rid of that, he'd be able to hit me for 4 and whatever 1 for every minion that he plays. Yeah. I think I'd better just Flame Strike now. I do have another one coming. I have the Cone of Cold and the Fireball to protect me if more bad minions come out, but let's just get rid of that stuff. He's at least running low on cards, but I don't know if I can dig myself out of this 9 hit point hole I'm in. Especially with him hitting me for 1 every turn for free. I've been too desperate trying to hold off his forces to come back. I have fast cards in here, but I did not get them this game. And he had a pretty fast start. I wonder what's in his hand that he's not playing. If you get 2, 3 damage, I'd be down to 5 if he does nothing else. There is a druid spell that just does 5 damage, which could be used on a player. That would be really bad. I don't think I can do much about that, though. I'm not going to Cone of Cold for just this, I don't think. I could draw the 2 cards, but I'll have to do that later. I just need to put out some stuff. I guess I'll shoot that. Doing 1 damage to him isn't helping me win, whereas doing 2 damage to this might let me kill it with this next turn, or it's more likely to impact my chances of survival right now. I am barely hanging on. I have that guy who heals you for 3.
Well played.
I have one of those. No, he's got me dead. He probably drew the spell that does 5 damage, and I forgot to squelch him too, which is horrible. Ooh, that's the spell I was talking about. It is a common druid spell. Yeah, no, he got a fast start, and I didn't. And this deck really has a decent amount of options for fastness. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, about almost a third of the deck is 2 mana or less, and all of these, none of these are like late game cards. Some of them might be better late game, but they're all things that I could play early in the game to hold off an enemy attack, and I did not get them. So I just started in a bad position, and he was able to keep up the momentum, keep my side of the board clear, and yeah, it got him the game solidly. So I've already got 1 strike, but When you lose your first game in the arena, guess what? Your next opponent is probably going to be someone who has no wins in this particular arena, in their arena run either. So the odds often favor you winning the next game. So I'm not going to worry too much yet. And we'll see what happens next time. Put the hammer down on that like button. And check out Tales from My D&D Campaign on youtube.com/Demonac.